Unless you've been living under a rock for the past few years, you probably know about Jordan Peterson and his incendiary views. And if you know Jordan Peterson, you were probably introduced to him through this clip.
You cited freedom of speech in that. Why should your right to freedom of speech trump a trans person's right not to be offended?
Because in order to be able to think, you have to risk being offensive. I mean, look at the conversation we're having right now. You know, like you're certainly willing to risk offending me in the pursuit of truth. Why should you have the right to do that? It's been rather uncomfortable.
Well, I'm very glad I put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm very glad that I've exercised my freedom of speech.
You get my point. It's like you're doing what you should do, which is digging a bit to see what the hell's going on.
So
and that is what you should do. But you're exercising your freedom of speech to certainly risk offending me. And that's fine. I think more power to you as far as I'm concerned.
Except you haven't sat there and... I'm just trying...
Gotcha.
You have got me. You have got me. I'm trying to work that through in my head.
Impressive, right? That is the way Peterson masterfully answered Cathy Newman's question, totally demolishing her and exposing her hypocrisy. Charisma on Command even made a video on it, somewhat cheekily titled, How to Avoid Embarrassing Yourself in an Argument. Because Newman's the idiot in this video, right? She's a loser, the blatant, posturing SJW hypocrite who uses free speech for herself but denies it from others. In sharp contrast, Peterson is a defender of free speech, and through this clip, he's become the great bastion of Western society and the bogeyman that all leftist SJWs run away from. Well, not so fast, Petey boy. On this channel, we love skepticism and the cold, hard truths it uncovers about the world. I want to take a few minutes to turn that skepticism towards this particular clip and really dig into its message. On the face of it, it seems very clear that Peterson wins the argument by making a universally true, innocuous, big-brained argument about free speech. Poor Cathy Newman herself seems to think she's lost in a hapless smooth brain. What is actually going on here? What is Peterson actually trying to say? To be clear, I don't want to spend time analyzing Peterson's statements and how they relate to the rest of his ideology. That would require me to research his actual ideology, and I have neither the motivation or brain cells for that endeavor. Rather, I want to focus on his arguments about their logical implications and hidden assumptions to a natural destination. Of course, knowing some of Peterson's ideology will be useful in finding those hidden assumptions. For this reason, I will work with the assumption that Peterson is anti-postmodernist. That is, he believes that there exists overall objective truths and narratives that dictate human behaviors and guide us towards what moral truths we should hold. Furthermore, he believes these truths and narratives can be uncovered through the scientific method. For context, Newman is questioning Peterson about his opposition to Bill C-16, an amendment to the Canadian Human Rights Act to include gender identity or expression as illegal for grounds of discrimination. Peterson believes that the bill is designed to stifle free speech by punishing those who don't use preferred pronouns. We start with the question that Newman initially poses towards Peterson. Why does your right to free speech trump a trans person's right to not be offended? I believe this is a badly phrased question on the part of Newman, and this phrasing sets her up for rhetorical failure. Newman's phrasing implies that refusing to call trans people by their preferred pronouns is a form of free speech. By asking the question this way, Newman has implicitly ceded that what Peterson is engaging in and advocating for is free speech. It is known that transphobes will refuse to use requested pronouns to dehumanize and delegitimize trans people. When transphobes purposely misgender someone, they are using it like a Nazi dog whistle. Other transphobes know what they are doing, but it is ambiguous enough for the general public to not call it out, mistaking it for ignorance on pronouns or free speech advocacy. Intentional misgendering is, by definition, hate speech, public speech that expresses hate or encourages violence towards a person or group based on something such as race, religion, sex, or sexual orientation. In order for free speech to exist, hate speech must be curbed. This was the aim of Bill C-16. Think about it this way. If we know that there's a high probability that nothing anyone is saying is hateful, we will be freer to say whatever we want. Thus, we can begin to see that the place where Peterson's arguments are coming from are not as pro-free speech as we might think. For this reason, I believe it was a mistake to cede him this point with no discussion. Now, Newman cannot backtrack and criticize Peterson's beliefs without looking like a hypocrite. Peterson utilizes this and centers his response around the free speech point that was dropped in his lap. He says, "Because in order to think we must risk being offensive. Look at the conversation we're having right now. You're risking offending me in order to get to the truth." The implicit assumption is the equality of harmful potential between Newman's line of questioning and Peterson's questioning of the validity of pronoun use. He used the phrase, "in order to think," and "getting to the truth," to equate his actions in disregarding the feelings of trans people about their identity to Newman's disregarding of his feelings of conviction and his epistemic beliefs. Clearly, these actions are not the same, as identity is non-epistemic, while ideological and political conviction is. However, he's able to make the logical jump to equating his ideas with Newman's journalism because of the free speech point that was given to him earlier. He purposely uses journalist rhetoric, such as "getting to the truth," to make this equivalence between Newman and himself seem more believable. Peterson's response hinges on his assertion that at times it is moral to disregard another person's feelings to uncover some greater truth. He believes that the interviewer's questioning of him is moral for this reason. However, he then jumps to the conclusion that this means his disregard of trans people's feelings is moral as well. This assumes that the situation of trans pronouns is equivalent to that of Peterson's ideological beliefs. So what Peterson is really asserting is that being trans is an ideology, and for that reason, being trans is an epistemic decision. This is the crux of the issue with this clip. On face value, it seems that Peterson is simply defending free speech. However, through a chain of implicit assumptions, we see Peterson is really asserting that being transgender has the same epistemic qualities that having a political or social belief does. This position assigns to the transgender person the same epistemic responsibilities for their identity as that of a Nazi, communist, pro-choicer, pro-free speech advocate. Combine this with Peterson's modernist viewpoints, and now we reach the idea that being transgender is a moral act. This is a totally absurd idea. It's like saying that being black has a moral value. You don't choose to be born in a society that misgenders you because they follow a system of attributing gender based on sex, just like you don't choose to be born a certain ethnicity. It's a total miscategorization of a metaphysical identity as somehow epistemic. But alas, this is not a discussion of metaphysics as it applies to gender, simply a critique of one viral internet clip that isn't what it seems. What's interesting to me is how loaded such a simple exchange was with assumptions, and how not acknowledging those assumptions changed the whole nature of the conversation. Every corner of the internet collectively decided that Peterson had won that argument and was a bastion of free speech, when in reality, he was basically creating a new dog whistle for transphobia. If anything, this clip shows the importance of taking time in constructing arguments and engaging in conversation. Taking the time to understand what is really being asked, and then taking the time to understand what is really being said, is a luxury that sadly too few of us have these days.